Now let's take this first one here. Okay, it's kind of a small picture. What format do you think it is appropriate without reading it?
JPEG.
JPEG. Why?
It's just an image.
It's a photograph.
Yeah.
It's got complex data, and is there any transparency? Are there hard lines? No, not really. Okay. Now this picture here is already been optimized. It's fairly small, and I just pulled it off the web. But let's say that we are creating a thumbnail. So we're going to resize this. So we do our normal image size. Switch ourselves to pixels, because since we're working here on the web, we're going to do everything in pixels. And we're going to say that we're going to take this down. We're trying to do this for a thumbnail, and it is 160 pixels wide. Previous versions of Photoshop, I had problems with the automatic. And I would tell you to come down in here and make sure that you use the bicubic sharper for the reduction. But anymore, I'm finding the current versions, the automatic seems to guess correctly on the method of doing it. When we resize an image, we are going to get rid of data. So it's going to have to figure out how to throw the data away but still keep the same image. And that's where those algorithms come into play, because each one has a type of graphic or a type of information that it's better at processing. We'll say OK, and it's reduced it. It quite often is a good idea to enlarge it, take a look at it. What we're looking for is, did it blur things too much? Now, if I blow it clear up, it's going to look strong. There's just not enough data. It's having to guess. So make sure you're happy with it at the 100%. But I will quite often open it up a little bit just to check it and maybe see if there's a little cleanup that needs to be done. In this case, I would do a little cleanup in the sky normally, just to make it a little bit sharper. We're going to say it looks okay. We're going to go to File. And Photoshop has got this great tool. It's called Save for Web. And I'm going to put it to 2 up. It allows you to do comparisons. So we're trying to figure out what is the best format for this picture. I will quite often, it'll always have one that's the original. So we can see what it looks like unaltered as we look at our format. And you can change it, but I like to keep one there so it's for a good comparison. Then we come to the other one, and we can change the format, and it will also tell us the resulting size. So we can look at this one, and honestly, it's not that bad as a JPEG. Now, you can't see it here on the screen, but if you look here, you would see some bad banding and some solid colors, simply because we're limited on the amount of color information. So there's so much green on it. We got a lot of green, which means it can't do much for blue, so it's reduced our sky to like 3 colors. That doesn't look good. It's 16K. That's very reasonable. So let's go ahead and let's switch it to PNG 8. Well, that's also 256 colors, and it's 14.8K. There's the reason I don't use GIFs. Immediately, I just switch to the same format, different formats, same parameters. PNGs are smaller. It's a general rule. Like I said, I cannot reproduce the study that said that GIFs got smaller. The only place I ever use GIFs for is if I have to mess with animation. Okay, PNG's not going to work. PNG 8 won't, because that's limited. PNG 24, okay, PNG 24 supports all color. So we're not going to throw any color away. It's lossless. 38.7K. Still respectable. I try to keep my images, as small as possible, and my target is whenever possible to have them under 100K. It's a target. Sometimes you can't achieve it, okay? If you're trying to produce an image that is the background of your website, so you're putting it on the body, and so you have a really large image and your content's out, you're not going to get it that small. It's going to be large. There's just no way around it. So I try to stay under 100K when possible, but my goal really is as small as possible and still have it look good. Okay, PNG 38K fits my requirements there, but I bet we can do better. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to start at JPEG high. I just dropped to 7.9K with JPEG. Question, which format am I going to use? JPEG. It's the smallest. And if I look at the quality at JPEG high, it's basically identical to the original. Now, I can come up here and I can turn it up to very high. Let's turn it up to maximum. At maximum, which is got almost no data thrown away, it's 22K. So it's bigger than our GIF was, but it's still smaller than our PNG in this case. Generally, I find, unless I'm sharing images, photographs or something that are going to be printed or something, generally I don't use maximum. I can switch this to very high so it doesn't do much compression. And I'm down at 12, or high, I can drop it to 7.9. I can't see any real difference. I'm going to use very high. Well, let's go ahead and test it. Let's take it to medium. There's 4.3K. And I don't know if you could see it. I'm going to switch to high. You see the slight shift in the image as I switch it? As I reduce it down, I'm throwing more and more data away. The way JPEG works is it looks at colors that are next to it. It works in blocks. And it tries to get rid of information that's not needed. So it's saying, you know what, these two colors are really similar, so I'm going to pick a medium color so I only have to store one piece of color information. Well, as you increase your compression, it throws more and more data away. It's what's known as a lossy format. JPEGs are great for file size, they're great for complex data. Their big downside is they throw data away. And every time we resave it, we throw more away. So it's cumulative. The loss is cumulative. And there's no way of going back except to find an original. Now let's just for fun, let's take what it looks like and be on low. Well, it basically blurred the image out. But I'm down to 2.7. This isn't good. I'm going to go back up to high. That's good enough for my purposes. Zoom it back to 100%. Yeah, you're not going to see any of the loss. There is some sizing that I can do. I generally like to do my sizing first. And we could save it out. I'm not going to bother with this one. Let's do another one. Let's save it. Let's pull in a car. What image format should I use? Most likely? PNG, potentially. Most likely JPEG. But you know what? We will test it. If I am doing this as my background and I'm saving it because I'm editing it, I'm going to use PNG every time, all the way up to the final. And this is a little tip. When you're developing your web graphics, don't throw away your high resolution. Do all your editing at high resolution. Optimization is the last step. And make sure you keep your high-res images. I create a separate folder, and I keep all my high-res images in it. And then I have a second folder, And that's where I put my optimized images. So as I go through the resize and the save process, I put them into the optimized. That way, if I ever have to go back and change an image, or reuse it or recreate it or something, I go back, I've still got my original Photoshop files. And I don't have to work through it. One, it keeps my work, but two, that way I'm not dealing with JPEG loss. I've got a full res format. This thing is actually quite large. We're putting this on a web page, and we're going to have it up at the top. Our website is 1200 pixels wide, and we're doing this as a full frame up the top because we got a car site, or you just bought this car and you want to show it off. So it's going to be large. So let's go ahead and image size. So what size should we put it at? Our website was 1200 pixels wide. I think that might be a clue. Am I going to put it at 900? No. Probably going to put it at 1200 pixels because I want it to go to the reach across the whole thing. If I have to resize it 1 or 2 pixels in my CSS after this, it's not a big deal. So we get it in, we built it for 1200 pixels, and then we decide put it up there, and you're going, you know what, I really needed this to be 1198 pixels. Just resize in your CSS. It's okay. Not a big deal. Now in this class, I highly recommend that I don't see resizing at all. It helps your grade. Optimize it, get the right size. 1200 pixels, resize it. Double check the image. I've got some banding here. I might want to fix that. I could mask this, I could blur it, I could smooth my banding out if I wanted to, but I'm not going to in this case. We're going to say the image is good. File, save for web, and GIF, 284K for a GIF. Banding is tremendously worse. The car itself looks pretty good, which would mean if I took the background out, so if I masked out that background and had the car by itself, GIF wouldn't be that bad a choice. Okay, well, let's switch over to PNG 8. Oh, 198K. Again, it was smaller. But I've still got my banding. PNG 24, 346K. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to look like the original. Let's switch to JPEG though. Low. Oh, I see lots of pixelization, especially along here, along my hard edges. That's not going to be good. So let's change it. Let's go up to medium. Still don't like it. High. At high, I've lost my heavy pixelization around the edges. I'm at 82K, which means I've got a 1200 pixel wide image. It's 1200 by 750, and I have still managed to get under my 100K goal. So I have a pretty large image, and I've still made my goal. Just to double check that we're not going to see much difference, switching it to very high, which moves me up to 135, I really cannot see the difference. I'm going to use high. Are you seeing how I explore this? Test it. This is the beauty of this tool. Now, part of the reason you use the Save for Web tool is it pulls extra information so that it's got algorithms specifically for modifying it and optimizing it for the web. Okay, it's specifically designed for it. There's extra information that can be stored in the images, and it helps strip that extra out. It's not necessary. At that point, I would save it, and I'd have an 82.5K file. Don't save. Okay. I've got a tree. What format would I use for this? Hint, there's transparency. Huh? GIF? Yep, right. That is a valid option. Or PNG. Am I going to use JPEG?
What about, is this a vector?
This one, actually, it probably was originally a vector, but it's been rasterized. Yes, if this was a vector, then SVG would be my format, but this has already been rasterized. Okay. Again, first question. Is this the size we need it to be? If not, resize it. Okay. In this case, we're going to say, yep, it is the correct size. So we will come in. We're not going to resize it. Save for web. And no, it's there. It's just I was zoomed out at 100%. This is a fairly large image. Oh, we look at it, and it's 6,000 pixels wide. It's pretty big. We might want to change it. But this time, I'm not going to. We're going to leave it alone. So, no question. People know how to do that. And that's the first step. Resize it. So we come here, GIF. 413.3K. PNG 8. 158K. Let's go up to 24 and see if it makes any difference. 330K. But I want you to note something. When I was here at PNG 8, notice it shows the number of colors down here. There's only 140 colors in this. Since there's only 140 colors, this image can be fully represented. Remember, my limit's 256. So at this point, GIF or PNG 8 are appropriate because it can totally do it. There's no issue there. At that point, it's just a case of test it and see which one's smaller. In this case, again, PNG 1. Just for fun, let's switch it to JPEG. Oh, I just jumped up to 1.3 megs. Let's take this down to medium. Oh, 526. Low. 404K. In this case, JPEG gets rid of our transparency, and it's smaller than a PNG 24. It's larger than a PNG 24. So what's our correct format for this one? No, probably PNG 8. PNG 24 is 330. PNG 8, I can fully represent it. There's no color loss. 158K. And this is a large image. Are you seeing how our image choice can make a huge difference? There will be times that you will go in and you will find that the JPEG will take an image like this and it will be smaller. But if you have transparency, your transparency is gone immediately. So your questions you ask yourself, do I have transparency? Yes, no. No? Okay, JPEG's an option. Am I full of solid colors and hard lines? At that point, the chances you're going to use JPEG go down. Okay? So if you don't have transparency, but you have solid colors, hard lines, You might still consider JPEG, but as you saw right here, PNG GIF are optimized for this type of graphic. They're probably going to beat it. That's where you're going to go. But if all fails, test it. Be sure to watch your color table and make sure that you can actually support the number of colors. Now, if I wanted to take this even smaller, I can come down here, and occasionally I'll do this. It's like, there's 140 colors in here. I bet that I could probably reduce that to 128 colors, and I may not be able to see the difference. 154K, well, let's see, about 64 colors. Now I'm getting some more banding. 152K, I'm really not changing the size difference. So I'll go ahead and I'll let it go out and be the whole time. With some images, you will find that by restricting the colors, and you watch it because you can see what the color table is doing. There's some ability to edit the color table. You can actually alter the color table, and you can optimize it in the compression to get it just as small as possible. Okay, what are our steps in image optimization? First step.
Resize.
Resize, which means first thing you need to know what your sizes are. There's a couple of ways of approaching that for getting your right sizes. One, when you're developing your wireframe and you figure out your sizes, you know your widths, you know how big your images are going to be. So even before you start coding, you should have an idea what your image sizes are going to be. Okay? At the wireframe point, you should be determining it. But let's say you get in, you build your wireframe, and you alter it because once you start coding it, you go, no, this isn't going to work. So at that point, you're going, well, I'm not going to optimize my images. A trick you can use. You do have width and height attributes that you can put in your HTML and in your CSS. Put them in. Have your large image. You're working local. Put them in. Resize the image. Make it look good. Note those values. Now resize your image. And you can either leave them in or take them out. Now I do ask in this class you take them back out. I do double check to find out if they've been resized in your HTML or CSS. Firefox is really nice. It'll tell me. I can look at a page and it will tell me if the images have been scaled. But just take them out. It's the surest way to make sure you know that your image was resized correctly. So put them in. Experiment. Rearrange the sizes. Find what the optimum size is. Go into Photoshop. Resize it. Okay, that's step one. Step two, pick your file format, your save as format, and use the Save for Web tool. Your images will be slightly smaller than if you just do a file save as. It does optimize for it, and the biggest thing is it lets you experiment and tweak your settings so that you can get it as small as possible.